Today I want to do something a little different and talk about some sweaters that I've been making for myself that you're not going to see for a while. They're not ready for publication. And specifically the experiments I've been doing with fake set-in sleeves, with sort of mock set-in sleeves. A lot of you know that I've been, I don't know if the word is struggling, but I've been transitioning from a whole career pretty much of knitting in pieces from the bottom up to now doing more and more. Most everything I'm designing now is top down because so many people want to do it. So it's a new challenge, it's a new way of thinking, and I kind of want to perfect my way of thinking about these things. A lot of sweaters are out there that are raglan, and it's not my favorite, so I want to go a different direction. I have several things ready for publication soon that are knit from the shoulders down, like do the back shoulders and then the front shoulders. Not that European shoulder, but a very American shoulder with the shoulder right in the middle. That are drop sleeves, and those are easier to design, easier to knit, but there is something to be said for the shaping of a set-in sleeve. And how do we achieve that beautiful fit without having to sew in a seam, which even I don't love doing. So here I have some experiments over the last year, maybe a little more, that I've been doing. They started out being sweaters that were just for me, and most of them probably are going to get published. Some I have some beautiful pictures of, which we'll be inserting as we go along. I'm going to go chronologically. So the first sweater I knit with a sort of mock set-in sleeve is this one. I don't know what I'm calling it yet, so don't look for it in Ravelry yet. So this one was knit from yarn that I bought at the Common Ground Fair, because when I go to an agricultural fair or, a fiber festival, I kind of let loose the reins of my money. I'm like, I want to spend, I want to support people. So I bought this beautiful yarn that is from Herbal Revolution. It's a cashmere blend yarn, and I have heard that they're not going to make any. Like, this was a one-time thing where two companies, a company called Forage and Herbal Revolution, got together and put their wool and their cashmere together. It's kind of like, like peanut butter cups. They put the peanut butter and their chocolate together. Anyway, it's a wonderful yarn. And I'll tell you in a minute. Actually, I'll tell you now. So I have photographed this sweater, and it is going to be published, but I've decided I'm also going to re-knit it in a yarn that is much more accessible. It's a really nice hand dyer. Her name is Robin's Promise, and I'm using another cashmere blend. I found some colors that look very much, not exactly, but very much like my original. So about the shoulder, we'll put some close-ups in here, I think, but this particular shoulder, I started with the neckline, but I didn't do the collar first, but just start at the neck and then do massive increases on each shoulder, going all the way around front and back. Well, I have short rows, and I shaped the front with short rows. So the increases, I don't like to do increases on a wrong side row, so I did double increases on a right side row. And because there are short rows and we haven't quite closed the front yet, there are right side rows and wrong side rows. So this has the shoulder that's built out with massive increases. And then when I got to the point where it was at my full shoulders, then I started going around and around, increased more massively on the sleeve than on the body. That imitates the set-in sleeve. And then at the very bottom there, you're increasing massively to make the bell curve that you would have. For those of you familiar with sewing, you know that a sleeve that is sewn into a blouse, so it has a bell shape. And so those increases that are both on the sleeve and on the body imitate that, and then there's some cast on stitches at the bottom. So this was my first experiment with this in a long time. I have some sweaters like that I did for Barocco that have a similar shaping, faking the set-in sleeve. But this is the first one that's like that. And actually this is the first one that you should look for, but I don't know when it's going to be published. Then, let's see if I can get this in the right order. I made this sweater for myself, and it's got an easy texture that's only a 2-stitch repeat. And it's all about, obviously, the cable that's going down the front. The trickiest thing here is I really wanted to knit the neckline first, which isn't my usual. I usually say knit the neckline last because people have sloppy necklines and it's harder to go back and correct them. But in this case, I wanted that cable to be directly used from the neckline into the body of the sweater. So I had to knit it first. So picture I had this tube of knitting. In this case, I did the kind of shoulder where you have the entire back shoulder. So I cast on, I had this tube, I cast on stitches on one side of the back using the tube in the middle, and then on the other side, and I worked down a few inches basically to what would be the depth of the front neck. Then I picked up, we'll need to come in closer for this part, right? I picked up along the back shoulder and knit the front of, like I knit the right front, and I took in stitches from the neckline. This is hard for me to describe. So I ended up, I knit across, and as I came down, I would pick up like one stitch, one stitch, one stitch. So short rows that incorporated what was already knit. Don't worry, when this finally gets published, I can do like tutorials on that and have it be less mysterious. But that's the basic idea. And when I get the second front done, then it could all be joined. And you end up with a front and a back, and you have to pick up across the side of those because there's an open side piece. And at that point, everything that you've picked up is the top of the sleeve cap. And then you can start going around and around and around. And something that's special about this piece is the texture that I use being a 2-stitch repeat. When I make increases or decreases, I always do a double increase or a double decrease so that every single round after that increase or decrease after the shaping, you're working the pattern exactly the same as you were before. So you don't have to know, okay, you don't have to figure out, is this a knit or a purl? You're working exactly like you were the last time, like you really can stay in your rhythm. And I've been doing quite a few pieces with a really similar texture because I'm kind of in love with that. And I know that people don't like to figure out how to stay in pattern if it's not intuitive to them, and this really helps. So in this case, it's really similar to what I just described in the other sweater, so that you're increasing more wildly on the sleeve, and you get to go straight for a little bit on the body part, and then both increase wildly so that you get a bell shape. Also, you might want to notice about this sweater that it has huge sleeves, because I was becoming kind of jealous of, have you seen Agio knits sweaters? And I'm loving some of her sleeves. I really should knit one of hers just to see what it's like. But I was jealous of those big sleeves, so so I experimented with it too. And All right, you guys can comment on it. I know I'm going to see comments, but go ahead. I know that everyone's saying, I can't wear sleeves like that. I can't do the dishes. I can't cook in those. I can't. And there are some things you can't do in them. Also, but you can just flip them back and use them. Plus, I have to admit that I put dishes in the dishwasher and my husband's the one who does most of the dishes in the sink, so I don't have to get them wet. But anyway, I wanted to see. Rather than not wearing these, I wanted to see if I loved them, and I really love the way I feel in them. So it might be worth it. So would you try, or wouldn't you try to knit this big sleeve? Also, I wanted to know that you could comment on. Probably when I publish it, I will put a more standard sleeve with it. So I'll give you a choice that you can use this great big sleeve, or you can start with a sleeve that's a little bit smaller at the top and much more tapered, probably still a little loose at the wrist so that it's not a ridiculous change, but one that is easier to wear. So from that one, I was still thinking in that kind of construction, and I knit this sweater, which may be hard for you to see on camera. And I'm forgetting that something I really wanted to mention is that when I'm doing these things for myself, like I'm thinking of myself, what do I want to wear, which is, I think, important, because other people will want to wear those too. So I'm not just saying like, oh, what's the magical sweater that everyone will want? I'm knitting for myself. And at the same time, I'm trying to use up my stash. Because like I said, I go to a fiber festival, I buy things. When I bought the yarn for the first sweater, I would have made a whole blue sweater, but there didn't have enough of the blue, so I had to buy the orange and the yellow. And then the game was to figure out, like, what can I do with that I would like? Even though that's 3 colors, I usually like 1 color. So most of these other things are things I had in stash. So this particular sweater, I couldn't resist buying a mohair from Fiber for the People. This Taylor Earl is one of my very favorite YouTubers. She does Wool Needles Hands, and she has her own hand dye company, and every few Saturdays she'll have a release, and she had a release of the mohair with this beautiful like spotted dyeing. So the mohair was black with these spots, and this is what it knits up like. At first I thought I was going to work it with black yarn. That's what the bottom of this swatch is. See if you can tell the difference. And then I remembered that I had this indigo yarn from Forage from the Common Ground Fair that I hadn't quite bought enough to make a sweater as big as I like them. So I thought, what if I mix it with the mohair? The gauge is bigger, I don't need so many yards. And what does the blue look like with the black and spots? And I liked it even better. It's really rich. So that's what this sweater is. And again, top down, fake set-in sleeves. In this case, I knew I wanted a wide and deep neck. I did not start with the band, that's added later, but I cast on straight across the back, and I like to put a little garter in, which is going to be impossible for you guys to see probably, but straight across. And then it has such a little shoulder that I didn't need any short rows for the shoulder. But then I just worked down a few inches what I thought would be the depth of the front neck before I did a right front and a left front. And then I joined it all in one, so it has a pretty wide top of the sleeve. So now I'm realizing, not right this second, but since I knit this, I'm realizing that the back did not have to go to the front neck depth. I could have had a shallower top, or less wide top of the sleeve, but I had it stuck in my head that I couldn't join it until the front neck was done. But that's not true, because I could still have been going back and forth. But that's what I did. So in this case, I have a very wide top of the sleeve. I think I will draw a diagram for you of this one, because I know it's hard to see here. We have the top of the sleeve, and then I needed to increase a lot of stitches on the body as well as on the sleeve to get the body width I wanted. So it ended up being like almost raglan, but with a sleeve cap top, and then raglan for a bit, and then increases just a cast on at the bottom after the raglan bit. So that's a little different, but I think I'll experiment more with that sort of half set in, half raglan that doesn't come up to the neck, that only comes up to the shoulder, which is, it's a little different, but it gave me the stitches I needed to go all the way across. I like a nice big sweater. And then afterwards I did the neck and everything else. So someday I'll be publishing this one. I haven't photographed this one yet at all. And then the last one I wanted to show you is behind me on the dress form. And it's got a similar construction to what we just talked about, where cast on clear across the back. Because I knew I wanted to work in stripes to really show off this yarn, I didn't do short rows on the shoulders on this one either. So it'll be an experiment. Will I wish that I had done short rows to shape the shoulders, which is trickier to do, especially when you're trying to do 2 rows in one color. Actually, it's 4 rows in one color, 2 in the other. Or will I be happy with it? So the whole thing's an experiment. And this yarn is called Freya. It was given to me by the company, and I'm really loving it. And I don't work much with this kind of color gradient, so I really wanted to experiment with what I was liking. There's something about having it in your hands. Like, I can draw something, I can imagine it, but until you're really knitting it, you don't know how long each color goes, what does it really look like. This one probably will end up getting published. And I'm letting the colors just do what they do, but I definitely will talk all about that in a further video when it gets published. But this is my first experiment with the Freya. And it's the same idea. You can see the sleeve cap there, and because it's a similar texture, not exactly the same texture as the one I showed you earlier, but it's a multiple of 2. So when I increase, I'm doing a double increase, staying in pattern. I like what it does to the stripe. It's not so stripey. Obviously it's still a stripe, but it's not a crisp stripe. It's a more textured stripe. So stay tuned for all of these yarns and sweaters, and experiments. And when I do the video that's about each of these sweaters, I'll tell you like what worked out, what I wish I had done differently, stuff like that, other nitty-gritty, and some tutorials. So I hope you liked seeing an eye into what's happening in the background when I'm knitting all these things for myself. Happy spring. So I hear it's National Poetry Week.
Spring is sprung, the grass is riz. I wonder where the flowers is.